Now we're on to chapter number 9, Baroque solo and chamber music. The term Baroque needs a little bit of explanation. At the end of the Renaissance, the idea, Columbus had just discovered America, right? All these great changes were happening in Europe. Inventions. Think of Leonardo da Vinci's paintings, Michelangelo's sculptures. These are things that people hadn't seen in centuries. There were all these rumors of the great Roman Empire, and there was a feeling that that was coming back, that the power and the majesty of the Roman Empire was coming back. And so, like anything else, it went to extremes. As we enter the Baroque era, the art and the music became, for lack of a better term, flowery and overproduced, over-decorated, such that wealthy mansions, homes, every corner that could possibly be decorated was decorated with some sort of interesting decoration. Every surface was painted in a delicately and overdone fashion. Okay? What we would refer to as gaudy if we stepped into one of these homes. But at the time, that was the height of fashion. Everything was flowery. And the music followed that. The music became very flowery and very overproduced. Many trills, many endings that went on too long. That was the style of Baroque music. It was an awakening in the music. The technology followed also. We're going to talk a little bit about the technology and how that affects the music in the future. But briefly, in this chapter, we're talking about keyboard music, and I really encourage you, well, you're going to have to, read page 97 about playing the organ. There's some things in there that are really interesting, and this is the technology that I'm referring to. Behind the pipes, and by the way, organs were only found in churches, right? Nobody else could afford these pipes. Nobody else could have that in their home. It's just too huge. So pipe organs were in churches. Okay, so you have all these pipes, and below the pipes or near the pipes is the console that would control the airflow. Behind the pipes, boys pushing on these giant bellows, people-sized bellows that would push air through the pipes all the time, whether the person was playing on the keyboard or not. They would constantly be pushing this air through. The keyboard player pressing on a key would release air into pipes that were designated by the stops. Now, a stop is what it sounds like. You push a button and it stops the airflow going to certain pipes. Or if you pull it out, it opens up air going to certain pipes. And that's called registration, setting the registration of an organ prior to playing a piece of music. Difficult instrument to play. Got the right hand, the left. Let me try that again. Right hand, left hand, playing music at the same time. Your feet are tapping out notes on pedals for your feet, playing the bass notes. Another keyboard instrument, of course, was the harpsichord. The harpsichord was an instrument that was similar to the guitar in that it had many more strings than a guitar, but it had picks, similar to my long fingernails here, picks that were striking the key instead of hammering the key like the modern piano. Okay? Piano was invented during the Baroque, not credited as being a Baroque instrument because it didn't gain popularity until approximately 1750 or so when we began the classical period. But in the Baroque, the harpsichord was the guy. Now, the harpsichord, music was written, of course, for the organ and the harpsichord. One of the more famous ones was Bach's toccata, and a toccata is a piece of music that, the form of the toccata is one that shows off the scale runs and trills and different, again, flowery things like that. Scale runs being as quickly as you can, and trills is a trill. And different than a fantasia. Fantasia, more virtuosic thing, really difficult passages being played, but they sound very similar. One of the more famous toccatas is from Bach's Toccata and Fugue, which you've heard in movies, you've heard, if you have not been living under a rock, you've heard this, trust me. Etc., etc. So you've heard this before. Let me talk about fugues. Now, we talked about fugues a little bit in a previous video, but fugues need a little bit more explanation because in the Baroque, the ideas that the fugue introduced were very influential on other music that you're going to hear. So the fugue, again, begins with a subject, and the fugue that I used was this one from Bach. I can't play and talk at the same time. Sorry. So that's the subject. Right after the subject is played, and that's a short subject. Some subjects are longer, some are longer. I don't know a shorter one than that. Here's the counter subject that happens right after that. And then right after that, the subject comes in for a third time. Okay, so I'm going to play all three of those. While those subjects and counter subjects are happening, you're going to hear more material being played by that first voice. So consider this opening to be played on voice number 1, the counter subject, voice number 2, the third introduction of the subject, voice number 3. Okay, so see if you can hear those three voices happening all in one instrument. Okay, that's polyphony. And that is the fugue. Luckily for you, you're not a music major and you don't have to know how to identify the parts of a fugue. A little difficult. All you need to know is, subject, exposition, counter subject. Okay, the suite. Okay, great, the Baroque suite. Whenever you're listening to music in a concert and a suite is being performed, it will be listed on the program that you receive as the title of the suite. Under the title of the suite will be listed the parts of that suite. Bourrée, courante, allemande, gigue. Those are the different parts of the suite, and it is improper to clap in between those parts of the suite. You clap at the end of the suite. Don't ask me why. It's the tradition. The reason is because that suite is designed to be played as one piece of music with many different parts. So when a performer performs a suite, they will finish with the bourrée. So here's an example, a little bit of an example of a bourrée. Okay, so that's not the whole bourrée. But when the bourrée is finished, the performer will take a little pause and then move on to the allemande, or move on to the courante. On page number 96, it talks about those different suites. A little mention of the water music suite is Handel's water music suite. That's Hallelujah, man, Johnny. Sorry. Water music, I'm losing it. A little too warm in here. Water music suite is one that was performed on the water. So King George again asked Handel, I'm going on this boat trip. Can you write some music for me and my friends? Me and my well-heeled friends, and we'll put your band, your orchestra, on one boat. I'll write in the other boat. Of course, royalty and low-life musicians don't mix. So we'll put the royalty on one boat. And so King George was able to be serenaded along the river, the Thames in London, listening to Handel's Water Music Suite, which was nicknamed the Water Music Suite because of that particular episode. Okay, I've gone on a bit too long, but let me just mention the Baroque sonata. Two kinds of sonatas, and they're worth mentioning here because they're going to be on a quiz. But the Sonata de Chiesa and the Sonata de Camera, the de Chiesa in church, the de Camera or in home. That's the only difference. Okay, that's the only difference. There's more to it than that, but I don't want to get too involved. Important composers of the Baroque sonata: Corelli. Love Corelli's music. My flute player and I play Corelli's music. We love it. Vivaldi. The Four Seasons, you may have heard that music. Handel, of course, as mentioned, and Bach has been mentioned as well. Okay, on to the next chapter, and this particular week, which is chapter 10, the Baroque Orchestra, and that'll need some explanation.